This is Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a show for you. When do we not? But I want to talk a little bit more about Tennessee, because the more you dig deep into what happened against Appy State last week, and it's kind of important because it's going to decide what happens Saturday night at Bristol Motor Speedway as Tennessee goes on to take Virginia Tech. There's a lot of adjustments that have to be made there, but the biggest adjustment with Tennessee is the offensive line. And there's some numbers that I have about Joshua Dobbs and how well he played when he didn't have pressure on him. That might change the way that you look at him and might change the way that you look at that game coming off after. Also, a little bit more Kaepernick talk. And, of course, today is Thursday, so that's the Clutch Community Corner. That's the Clutch Community Corner coming up in the second half of the show. So stick around. We've got some awesome things to talk about here today, including about athletes and talking about mental health awareness, because we go on about a lot of things, but I don't think that we necessarily give the same amount of credence to mental health awareness that we do to all of the other things that we do. For instance, breast cancer awareness and the month where the NFL has all those really cool uniforms with the camo celebrating the troops. All of that stuff is important, but we can't forget everything else just because, we love the troops and because, breast cancer is something to be fought. So our mental health problems, and we can get into all of those things a little bit later on in the show as well. But before we jump into any and all of those things, I'd like to talk to you about where you can find us online, the interwebs. You can find us at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I highly recommend those. We're the only station that I'm aware of that streams all of our programming from our Facebook page. You click on that little radio plug-in, and you can have Hot News Talk Radio there. You can catch all of our local shows and our archived episodes on YouTube. You simply search Hot News Talk Radio and check us out at our website, hotnewstalkradio.com or noogaradio.com as well. And, of course, the TuneIn Radio app that's free in your favorite app store. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio in the app, give us a favorite, and press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. That's the TuneIn Radio app. Listen like you mean it. So Tennessee played against Appalachian State last week, and it was just horrid. It was last Thursday, and I was watching the game, and I couldn't understand for the life of me why it was that Tennessee couldn't move the ball. It wasn't like they looked lethargic. It wasn't like Tennessee didn't have their opportunities necessarily to pick up first downs, to keep the ball, keep that time of possession, which was definitely lopsided in the favor of App State going into halftime with that 13-3 lead. But Tennessee was trying to move the ball, and they were struggling so much doing it. I couldn't figure out why. And then, you're looking at the number of shots that Tennessee is taking downfield. And last week we talked about it. The number of shots that they took downfield, they only took 2 deep plays of 30 that gained 30 yards or more. Josh Dobbs only attempted 2 of those passes. One was an interception before halftime, which honestly, you're trying to get something happening before halftime. You're down 13-3. It was a bad interception, but that I don't have a huge problem with that because it was going into halftime. It wasn't going to lead to more points, presumably. It was kind of like a punt, basically. You either hit it or you miss it, and then the other team just time expires before they get to do anything. But when it comes to the play that he did complete, that long touchdown that ended up tying up the game for Tennessee, it was interesting to me because I was wondering why they didn't take more of those shots down the field. And something that I ended up noticing was that they didn't seem to run enough plays to throw the ball down the field because Josh Dobbs didn't have time. he basically didn't have a clean pocket that entire game. And by the way, if you have to talk about something negative for the Butch Jones era, if you've got to talk about any negative thing for the entirety of the Butch Jones era, it's that offensive line has been a weakness. And he's been capable of getting all kinds of talent, right? Butch Jones has been basically, since Philip Fulmer, the one guy that walks into your living room, says your kid's coming to Tennessee, and then they go to Tennessee. And he's getting 5 stars, and he's getting 4 stars, and he's killing it on signing day. But when you watch the team's offensive line for the entire time that Butch Jones has been here, offensive line has been a problem. They have struggled with that. And it looked like, though I can't prove it, it looked like, and I could probably look it up and get back to you on this one. It looked like Appalachian State's offensive line outweighed Tennessee's offensive line by about 50 pounds each guy. Like, they just looked bigger. Like, they talk about games being won or lost in the trenches. That's one game that ended up being way too close for Tennessee because they didn't have enough big guys in the trenches. Just getting overwhelmed defensively. Josh Dobbs was running for his life. And here's one decision that didn't get made that I thought was interesting. Get Josh Dobbs out of the pocket more. Like, if you know that the offensive line is not good, if you know that they're just a little too undersized, and they are disintegrating. That line was disintegrating on Thursday night. If you know all of these things, get Josh Dobbs out of the pocket. He can't stay there. There is no time. And you want to talk about why he's not being able to make all these deep throws, because I was really impressed with the one deep throw that he was able to connect on, to the point where it was like, why don't we run more of those? Maybe they tried to, but those plays take time to develop. You need time to let those routes open up, let your receivers win the routes, and then launch one up top. And he couldn't do it. There wasn't enough time. And one of the things that you had to be critical of Dobbs for during the game was his accuracy. His accuracy in that game. He completed 55% of his passes, almost 55% of his passes, which is terrible. I mean, it's not great. That's highly inaccurate. But here's something that's going to change the perception of that, right? When Josh Dobbs was under pressure, and he was under pressure 9 times versus Appalachian State, he completed none of his passes. He had a completion percentage of 0. His yardage was -4%. He threw 1 interception. They gained 1 first down. He had 2 sacks. His pass efficiency, -22 when he was under pressure. And I told you before, he completed 55% of his passes. When Josh Dobbs had time in that game, and these stats are coming from Saturday Down South, which is a very good football blog. And if you are an SEC fan, you should be reading Saturday Down South. According to them, when Josh Dobbs had time, he had 21 passing attempts. He completed 15. He completed 71.4% of his passes that he had with time. He picked up 196 yards. They averaged 9 yards a pass. They scored 1 touchdown, picked up 10 first downs, no sacks. Pass efficiency, 165.5. That's night and day. It's 0 or 71%. When Josh Dobbs had time in that game, he didn't just look like a competent quarterback. He didn't just look like a decent quarterback. Josh Dobbs looked like an amazing quarterback when he had time, which is more representative of the guy that we've come to see over the last season or so. Is when he's got time, he looks great. And by the way, nobody looks good without time. All right. I've seen Tom Brady, who, you know, arguably is the best quarterback ever. I would say he's the best quarterback you've ever seen in your life. That guy, without time, looks like a bad quarterback. They all do. Okay, there's things that you can do when you're Brady and you're Aaron Rodgers in terms of having some of the quickest release times in football that help out your offensive line a little bit. But none of those guys look great without time. You just have to give it to them. Passing plays take a few seconds to develop. And if you don't have those few seconds to go through your progressions for the receivers to get open, you can't succeed. It's just not going to happen for you. And Dobbs and the offense looked bad, but in part because the offensive line was really bad. And that's the key. And I don't know necessarily what the adjustment is going to be overall for this, but I think you've got to get Joshua Dobbs running, using his legs, using that mobility of his, get him out of the pocket, and maybe get him some quick throws. But don't always rely on the bubble screen necessarily. And get him some of those opportunities outside of the pocket to throw some strikes downfield. Because, I mean, that's the only way you're going to be able to win, and you need those big plays. I mean, you saw what other schools were able to do when they had those big plays. Alabama was stomping all over USC. They had those big plays. I mean, I know that we don't underestimate how important the offensive line is, but I still think it's easy to watch a football game and just go, what are they doing? And just forget about the offensive line on some level. It's hugely important to your entire game plan. And I don't know exactly when it was they decided to get away from Josh Dobbs in the game, but they didn't go to him passing the ball until the fourth quarter. They had some great plays, I think, and they just never developed into anything. So you abandoned the passing game and went to the running game, which is really hard to do, by the way, when you're behind. But you need the clock. And they just went to the running game. And because the offensive line wasn't great, did Jalen Hurd get over 100 yards rushing? Yeah, he did. He got over 100. I think he had 110 or something like that. But it was a very unimpressive 100. It was one of those where you looked up and went, oh, he had 100? How do you do that? It just didn't pop with him, which is crazy. Because Jalen Hurd is a pretty dynamic runner. But when you look at what the offensive line was doing, which was not much, the run protection was bad. The pass protection was bad. And look, I'm not calling out all these offensive linemen. If you know your offensive line is not strong enough to hold off a team like Appy State, because, I mean, their defensive linemen are just gigantic monsters. Like, if you know that that's the case, get your quarterback out of the pocket. Get your quarterback some quick throws. Because I thought Appalachian State did a great job of that too. Tennessee's D-line, by the way, led by Derek Barnett, they're no slouches. Those guys are pretty brilliant. Those guys are pretty amazing. I thought the defense stepped up huge in the second half. But Appalachian State, in order to combat the size and speed of the Tennessee defense, threw some slant passes early, threw some really quick, easy throws to just get their quarterback in rhythm and get the ball moving up the field. And I felt like Appalachian State got really conservative, took their foot off the gas going into the second half. You're Tennessee, you're looking at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's not going to step off. If Virginia Tech feels like they have you, they're not going to step off. I don't think they expect to win this game, but they don't feel like we're just happy to be here, which I think you got a little bit of Appalachian State, that they were not as aggressive coming down the stretch because they didn't want to lose the game. They didn't want to make the big mistake that would lose them the game. They would rather Tennessee make the big play. And it happened. So you've got to stay aggressive on some of those, but Virginia Tech's going to, in a way that Appalachian State didn't. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I want to shift gears here a little bit. We're going to stay talking football talk, but tonight is a Super Bowl rematch. The Panthers against the Broncos. It's a Super Bowl rematch, sort of. Sort of. Here's the thing, and I've been toying with the degree to which I even want to watch this game for a couple of reasons, right? One reason is that football season, at least the NFL season to me, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way too with college football. College football doesn't feel like it starts until that first Saturday. The NFL doesn't really feel like it starts until Sunday, when you've got all the games going and you've been just sitting in a chair on Sunday morning, rocking back and forth, start up. That's when it feels like football season is back. When you just have nothing to do but tweak with your fantasy football team over and over and over again. That's when it feels like it's back. And here's the thing. It doesn't feel like it right now. Like the Thursday night game doesn't feel like it's back. Like last week, we watched Tennessee and Appalachian State. That didn't feel like college football was back, though. We were watching that because, we're interested in Tennessee. What are they going to do? If it wasn't Tennessee versus Appalachian State, like if it was TCU versus Appalachian State, like none of us are watching that game Thursday night. Or even less high profile. If it was Kansas State versus Appalachian State, we're not watching that game. So that's one reason why I really am not super duper interested in Panthers versus Broncos. I am interested in seeing like if the Panthers can start their season as hot as they did last year, because they only lost 2 games, one of which obviously was the Super Bowl. But the Broncos are going to be running out Trevor Siemian at quarterback, which is the other reason why I'm not really interested in watching this game, is because I watched Trevor Siemian in the preseason. He's okay. He's okay. He understands the offense. He understands the system. But I'm not going to lie. I had to look up who Trevor Siemian was when I saw him in the preseason, because I didn't know who he was. Had no clue. I was convinced that Mark Sanchez was going to be the starting quarterback, and Mark Sanchez did everything in Mark Sanchez's power to lose the starting job. Which, I don't know what to tell you with that. Mark Sanchez did everything in his power to lose the starting job. And what is deeply fascinating to me is Trevor Siemian is the guy we're supposed to be excited about. And I understand that people thought, okay, look, if the Broncos were able to go to the Super Bowl with old, hobbled, tired Peyton Manning, who was basically being held together with paperclip, some twine, and some chewed gum, you just kind of wrapped it all together and hope that Peyton wouldn't fall apart, then how much better could they be with Trevor Siemian, who is at least actually healthy? Here's the thing. Mentally, Peyton was still there. Mentally, Peyton Manning is making the checks at the line that's necessary to win the chess match against the defense. That's what Peyton's doing. And you are not getting that from Trevor Siemian. Not at that same level. I mean, he understands the offense. So I understand that there's going to be some level of mental acuity that Trevor Siemian has. He's not unfamiliar with Gary Kubiak and the way this team runs. So I get it. But Trevor Siemian, I could not be more excited or less excited for a quarterback matchup for a first game of the season. It's Cam Newton and Trevor Siemian? Okay. I mean, I'm not super excited about it. And there's that. And then you've got the fact that the Panthers are starting a couple of rookie cornerbacks. So this defense that was supposed to be stifling last year, they lose a couple of veteran guys at corner. And, it's a battle of which gives first. Is Trevor Siemian good enough to beat these rookie corners? Or are these rookie corners better than Trevor Siemian? I don't even know. And quite frankly, watching the game to discover the answer might be too depressing a way to use my afternoon. In fairness, this is the same complaint that I make every year. I make the complaint every year that Thursday Night Football, it doesn't really feel like the NFL is back, and then I end up watching it anyway. It's the same thing with the preseason. I vow never to watch the preseason. I swear off the preseason. I watch at least 2 or 3 preseason games out of 4. So I don't know what to tell you on that one, except that, is this game going to be worth watching? Like, I'm not really excited. Like, there's a bunch of matchups on Sunday I'm excited about. And of course, I'm a Redskins fan, so Monday Night Football, Redskins Steelers, I'm very excited about that. Am I excited about Trevor Siemian versus a couple of rookie corners for Carolina? Not really. I think Carolina can win this game. I think they'll beat them pretty badly. I don't see, like, here's the thing. Denver's defense is still good. They don't return all of their talent this season from last season. I don't know if we're going to have this historically good defense. And also, time of possession on offense does affect your defense. If Trevor Siemian can't hold on to the ball and keep these guys off the field, I don't know that Denver's defense really shines at its full potential. But we'll see. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. The Community Corner is next.
Wars come and go, but my soldiers stay eternal.
Now you can listen to Hot News Talk Radio anywhere, streaming live at Noogaradio.com. That's Noogaradio.com.
Hot News Talk 1240.
With every election, the government always gets in. You're right to be angry. We have no free market, red tape everywhere, taxes crushing. There's no level playing field. Tomorrow may be a day of reckoning. But there is something you can do. It's personal safety, personal security, shooter supply and indoor range. Find the handgun or long gun suitable to you. Take a concealed carry permit class. Use Shooter's roomy indoor private shooting range. Get expert personal advice. Shooter Supply fights boldly against big boxes. It helps people understand firearms. A free republic has become a despotism. Let them choke on their swag. For us, we invest in personal safety. In the Second Amendment, fight back, shop local. The country is in a desperate situation, but you don't have to be. Shooter Supply, love your neighbor, buy local. 875-4868, 875-4868, shooters-range.com. Shop shooters-range.com. Think about the future. What about your kids?
Hi, this is Mike at Wholesale Liquidation, Highway 58, next to Taco Bell, featuring over 6,000 square feet of unique and everyday wholesale items, discounted at, get this, 50 to 75% off of retail, from new and pre-owned tools to chainsaws and auto accessories. Wholesale Liquidation, Highway 58, next to Taco Bell.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation. 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
This is Mike at For the Record at Northgate Mall. We're the largest complete record store in town. We sell old and new vinyl records, celebrity posters, music posters, and we are the largest in town. Come see us.
Expect mostly clear skies to continue through the nighttime. Mild again overnight, lows into the mid and upper 60s. For Thursday and Friday, though, that mini heat wave will continue. Lots of sunshine, looking dry through the middle of the weekend as well, with highs back into the lower to middle 90s. If you're human, chances are you love cheese, but chances are you've never had a burrito wrapped around melted cheese. It's the best thing since sliced cheese. New cheesy core burritos only at your neighborhood Taco Bell. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A Chattanooga man who was on the top 10 most wanted list from the TBI, accused of shooting 3 people, has now had his motive released. Police say Stephen Mobley's Labor Day rampage began when he gunned down 3 people for throwing up inside of his house. He then went on the run. He eventually turned himself in on Wednesday to a police officer at a gas station with his aunt. A man in Leggett Road on Sail Creek was firing cracked shots at cops from the windows of his house. His family says he was depressed and was making threats against himself. Authorities say they fired at officers several times and they fired back. He was eventually coaxed out of the building and taken into custody, charged with reckless endangerment felony. International superstar Usher is wanting your help to help out the Hamilton County schools. He set up a donation point at the Tennessee Pavilion today from 5 to 7 p.m. where you can donate art supplies of all sorts to Hamilton County schools. He's also having a private concert. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. This is the Community Corner. And on the phone with us, we have Amy Dulinky joining us to talk about TSPN. Thank you, Amy, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Hi, Amy. This is Janelle. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good. Excited to talk about what we have to talk about today. So you are with an organization called the TSPN. What does that stand for?
TSPN is the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network.
Awesome.
We're a public-private partnership statewide agency.
Awesome. So what is TSPN? What does it do? What is it about?
We're really about educating the community about suicide prevention and trying to reduce the number of suicides in Tennessee.
That is awesome. So what can you tell us about suicides in Tennessee? What do you know? What is your knowledge base? And what can you share with us?
On average in Tennessee, we have about 950 suicides per year. 2/3 of those are going to be middle-aged white males. So we know that that's our highest risk group. We're really focused on trying to reach every demographic possible, though, to reduce all suicides.
That's awesome. So how can you tell us a little bit about some of these statistics? Where do they come from? What do they mean?
Well, we have an annual report we put out that's called The Status of Suicide in Tennessee, where we gather information on different demographic information, whether it's age groups or race, trying to determine who our high-risk populations are. Although we are focused in working with adults and adults who work with youth, we really try to pay attention to how to target those high-risk groups.
Wow, that's awesome. So in some of the numbers that you're sharing with us, it seems like there's quite a bit of need. Every life is a reason. What can you tell us about the relevance of specifically the TSP based on some of this information?
I think the biggest thing for us is we're really an international model in the way that we function, really kind of as a statewide coalition. So we have a lot of volunteers, and it's just really important that we realize that suicide is a public health problem. And so being able to reach everybody where they're at, whether it's through social media campaigns or training behavioral health facilities, we really want to be able to get to everybody.
That's awesome. And you're listening to Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. This is Clutch with Keon Rose, Community Corner. And on the phone with us, we have Amy Dulinky from the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. And Amy, I'm so sorry. How do we say your last name?
Dulinky.
Dulinky. Okay. Now, a question I didn't ask you when we first started interviewing. What is your position with the TSPN?
I'm the East Tennessee Regional Coordinator, so I cover all 33 counties of East Tennessee.
Okay. So what is your role? What do you do as the coordinator?
Mostly what I do is training and then working with all of our different regional groups. So we have a regional chair in the Chattanooga area, in the Johnson City area, and in the Knoxville area. And we have monthly meetings where people can learn how to really help and what our new projects are going to be for that month.
Wow.
When we're working in our regions, we have everybody and anybody show up to these meetings.
So it's open, is what you're saying. So
definitely, anybody can get involved.
Do I have to be a member to come? How do I get involved with these meetings?
They can really just reach out onto our website, which is tspn.org, and get in touch with the regional coordinator in their area, and just send an email or give a phone call, and we'll be able to get them on our email list where they can hear about upcoming events, different things that are going on, new statistics, lots of information.
That's really cool. So, Amy, a personal question, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing is completely up to you. For a lot of people, suicide is a very, very sensitive subject. What can you tell us about how you have gotten, or what brought you to the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, and maybe some of the things that you've really been touched by in your experience with the TSPN?
Yeah, I got involved a few years ago. I started by covering West Tennessee for a year and have been covering East Tennessee for a year now. And I really got involved when with interest in suicide prevention from a really young age, because it seemed that everybody around me had been impacted by suicide in one capacity or another, whether they had attempted suicide, had lived with thoughts of suicide, or had lost someone to suicide. And I realized that through my work with trauma and different populations that had experienced trauma, that suicide was that one common thread. And so for me, it was really important to get that message out there, because it seemed like it was the only conversation we were never having.
That's really powerful, Amy. I believe Keon has a question.
I do, and this is Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. The community corner on the phone with us is Amy Delinky of the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. And you mentioned an interesting statistic earlier about suicide, that it is men, middle-aged men, did you say, is the biggest demographic?
Middle-aged white males is the highest risk group.
Which is interesting, because that is also the more or less the demographic of talk radio. So I feel like this is probably very important to people listening. But what are the causes of suicide? What are the main causes, do you think?
Well, suicide's never the result of one thing. So we're looking at loss of loved ones, financial changes, job loss, anything that can cause someone pain or loss. So it may be related to relationships, it may be related to finances or career, any of those things, and a ton of other things can lead to someone having thoughts of suicide. Usually people who are thinking about suicide feel like they can't change their situation or their circumstances.
So, follow-up question. For those of us listening, what would you say are some risk factors or things that we should look out for in those who are around us?
Definitely some of the things I just listed. So if someone has recently lost a job or gone through a divorce or has lost a loved one, especially if by suicide, we know that if someone's lost someone in their life to suicide, it increases their own risk by 4 times. Definitely hopelessness. Maybe that person has had a mood change, unexplained anger or aggression, maybe more irritability, sleep disturbances. It's a pretty extensive list, but you're really looking for anything that is a major change for that person, something that seems very out of character.
That makes sorry. So you mentioned that in getting involved, we can email the or go onto the tspn.org website and connect with you through there. I think these are fantastic things for us to be aware of, because if the statistics are that high, there's a high chance the majority of us have come into contact or at least been affected by some degree by someone directly or in our community who has committed suicide or even contemplated it. What can you tell us about other upcoming events that we can use to get involved?
On the website, on the homepage, if you scroll down, there's actually a calendar of events. But a couple events that we're having in the Chattanooga area. On September 15th at 6 o'clock at the camp house, we're having an event called We Are Glass. And it's really about being able to let people connect with each other, really in any capacity, whether it's volunteers or providers in the community or just community members. Just a way to get together and have some sort of advocacy and connection and really provide hope to the community. Also on September 16th, we're doing an event that's for all of East Tennessee, and anybody can participate wherever they are. We're just asking that people wear purple or teal and use social media with hashtags TSPN, ETN, Stand Together, and Suicide 2016.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So it sounds like you all are covering multiple platforms to get people involved, whether that be on social media or actual events or just regular meetings. So the last two questions that I have for you, the first that I have is this. If someone listening right now is struggling with suicide or thoughts of or suicidal thoughts or ideation, what would you say to them or someone who may be aware? What can we do to help? Or what can they do to find help?
Yeah, if someone's struggling with thoughts of suicide, just to know that it's really common that within any 2-week time period, we know that one in 20 people will have thoughts of suicide. It's very common, and there is help and there is hope out there. So people can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline phone number, which is 1-800-273-TALK, or they can even text the crisis text line at 741-741.
Okay, so 1-800-273-TALK, which is TALK, for anyone who is struggling with suicidal thoughts. And you can call and receive help, or 741-741 is a number that can be texted or sent text to. What is the?
It texted.
Texted, okay. Mm-hmm. Sent to via text in order to receive support and assistance. Amy, thank you so much. The last question I have for you, what is something that you would want our listeners to take away? If this was the first and last interview or anything dealing with suicide that anyone has ever heard of, what would you suggest? What would you want the takeaway to be if this was the first and last thing anyone ever heard about suicide?
That suicide is really preventable. And there are things that we can do. And just because someone has made that decision or had those thoughts doesn't mean that they actually have to take their own life. And just by really our kindness, we can help so many people, or our willingness to ask them if they're thinking about suicide. And just our knowledge of resources can really benefit people in the community.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Amy, for your time. We really, really appreciate you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
That was Amy Delinky of the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. And just a really good interview and something that we do need to talk about. It's one of those things that we don't enjoy talking about as much. I was talking about it earlier in the show. We like to talk about breast cancer awareness and supporting the troops and everything, because while those things are important, they also make us feel good. Suicide is one of those things that I guess reminds us how fragile we are mentally, and it doesn't feel as good to talk about, and we really avoid it.
I agree. One of the things that I think stood out to me from this interview is the fact that so many, like the numbers are, in the 900s of suicides that happen here in Tennessee that we've documented.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of people. And that the demographic is white males, in the middle age. I mean, that's growing up, at least my thoughts of someone who was suicidal was some angsty teenager wearing eyeliner and singing "What Was Me," cutting their wrists. But that statistic does not reflect that.
Not at all. And it was very surprising to me. And that's the thing about not just suicide, but other things that we need to be aware of when it comes to mental health, is that it's not always quite what it seems.
Right. Well, Keon, thank you so much for having us. And thank you for bringing this to the listeners. And I guess I would just love to leave that information again. That's tspn.org. 1-800-273-TALK. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, thoughts of intense depression, or had major life changes, whether that's job loss or significant other loss or changes in status of any kind, or text to 741-741. That's really awesome that those are resources. And from what it sounds like, a lot of people possibly are being affected by this that obviously we don't talk about. That's hard to deal with.
That is hard to deal with. But thank you, Janelle, for the community corner. That is Janelle. She is our community engagement specialist. Okay. Yeah, no, for once I didn't butcher her entire title.
Good job.
Yeah. So there you go. We have that. The community corner is very important. I really like that we do this every Thursday. Just have an opportunity to talk to each other about the issues that are affecting the community. You can't have sports without a community, and that's why it's important to uplift that and make sure that that particular message gets heard. And by the way, this is not the first time we have come across mental health issues being sort of put on the back burner in favor of other issues. I don't know if you remember a couple of seasons ago, Brandon Marshall, who's with the Jets now, but he was with the Bears at the time, wore his green socks during Breast Cancer Awareness Month because it also coincides with Mental Health Awareness Month. And Brandon Marshall, if you don't know, is a guy who has struggled with being bipolar in the past, and he's been diagnosed as bipolar. That's a whole official thing. And then he was also dating his, I believe, ex-girlfriend at the time, who was also bipolar and burned his house halfway to the ground. So it's an issue to him that's very important. And he wore green socks instead of pink socks. And the league fined him for bringing awareness to a different issue. And yes, while that does prove to the fact that, this whole breast cancer awareness thing seems to be partially because we do want to prevent cancer, but partially because the NFL can make a ton of money from saying that it wants to prevent cancer, it still does. I don't want that to take away from the fact that the other issue of Brandon Marshall being fined goes to show that mental health awareness issues tend not to be nearly as exciting or as glamorous you could go about solving, especially when it comes to something like suicide, because suicide, something that leaves us confused. It doesn't leave us with a ton of explanations a lot of times as to how it happens. And Amy Delinky said in the interview even that there are a ton of factors to this, not just something that is a one-off obvious factor. Where are there plenty of factors for things like cancer? Of course there are, but there usually is one way that cancer happens, and there is no one way that suicide happens. So again, it's very, very important to talk about. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose here on Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. And I'm a little disappointed. Here's the thing about college football right now. The season got off to the hottest start ever. All of those games from week one, it felt like, were fantastic games. Every single game. They all felt amazing. Okay, and you had so many games go down to the wire. Even the games that were blowouts were really good games. And I mean, the only game that was truly bad, that was truly hard to watch, because I went back and tried to watch LSU in Wisconsin. And I'm not going to lie. That's a bad game. That's just a hard game to watch, like visually unappealing in every way. And I know Les Miles is not like your offensive guy. Les Miles is going to put together a defense that's going to smother you, and you'll never see the light of day. And that's his specialty. That he's such a guru defensively that offensively, the bland vanilla offenses that he kind of runs, it's okay. You'll accept those because defensively he's so amazing. What I wonder with LSU is why the offense never got an upgrade. Like, you can't get an offensive coordinator in there that's going to do anything for you. Because the offense, again, for the last time, the offense looked dry. It looked dead again this season. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily why LSU was trying to fire Les Miles, but it was part of the reason why. Part of the reason was that this offense didn't look great. And I have blamed Brandon Harris for so much. Like, I just look at him and I go, this guy is too talented to look this powerfully average. Like, Brandon Harris reminds me a lot of Josh Dobbs, whom I like as a quarterback, albeit that I criticize his arm frequently. I like the guy as a quarterback, and I look at Brandon Harris and I go, he is at least as talented as Dobbs is. Why isn't this getting done? And now I'm looking at it, like rewatching the LSU-Wisconsin game. That offense ain't a great offense. It's not a good offense. It's so boring. You don't surprise any defenses. And I understand you could go clear in the opposite direction, by the way, and just run way too many tricky things, right? Like, you could be Gus Malzahn and run in and out 3 quarterbacks in a game with no rhyme or reason as to how it is that happens. But you could go the opposite direction, be Les Miles, have no offense. Like, you don't want to be that either. I don't want to say that LSU might have shot themselves in the foot, but that was the only bad game from week 1. Horrible. The game might have been close, but it wasn't good. I will say that. The game might have been close, but it wasn't a good game. Like USC and Alabama, that was a good game. It was lopsided, but I couldn't believe what I was watching with Jalen Hurts. Like, there's storylines there. Like, how talented could Alabama be again? There was people saying that, Alabama shouldn't be rated number 1 again. We're just rating them number 1 because they just won the title and we don't know what else to do with them. And I was one of those people, by the way. We don't know what to do with Bama. So we just kind of throw them back up there at number 1 and just wait till they lose. Let them prove us wrong. But they might actually be number 1 good again. And I'm so disappointed because I'm looking at the schedule for week 2 of the college football season, and it is eye-blisteringly bad. I mean, unless we have some crazy upsets, it is Tennessee and Virginia Tech, one of the more interesting games, certainly. But that is about it. We don't have anything next week. I mean, I don't know how this schedule ended up getting worked out this way. And I understand it's a conference thing, but like, no good games. There are no good games next week. Certainly not of the SEC, but just in general, no good games. Good night. It's so bad. Like, I don't know what to tell you on that one. Week 3 already. Week 3 is going to be great. Like, you have to suffer through this desert of week 2 college football after coming off of the high of a great opening weekend. We had Texas and Notre Dame. We had Alabama, USC, and then now we come back to this. I'm looking forward to seeing what Mississippi State's going to do because they lost to Southern Alabama. I'm interested in seeing how they're going to bounce back, what their quarterback situation looks like, because replacing Dak Prescott is starting to look like a problem, like a legitimate problem for that football team, and I don't know what Dan Mullen's going to do about it. And it's going to be interesting to see. You've been listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. It's been Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. Special thanks to Janelle for running the Community Corner, and a special thanks to our guest, Amy Delinky, for talking to us about the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, but don't go anywhere. 2 Millennials Talk next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. We've got a table here at Delia's, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy near the Thrasher Light. There's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nacho chips made fresh every day in the kitchen. Delia's, open every day except the Lord's Day. Treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. 521-7145.
Whole body vibration really works for weight loss, pain relief, circulation, and building bone density. Go to Lily's as seen on TV and talk to Dottie at the Gun Barrel Road store and Robert at the 153 Hickson location. 10 minutes equals 1 hour walking. It really works.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
Rubber's tough, but foam rubber is soft. Foam rubber is the star at Stuff It Upholstery, which uses it to revive your couch, your embarrassing easy chair, your boat seat cushions. Stuff It Foam Rubber in Hickson covers Chattanooga and surrounding areas. Don't throw out that favorite easy chair that's grown haggard and barbaric. New life for your seat cushions. Premium auto-grade rubber foam for your restaurant, church, or business. Stuff It Upholstery brings comfort and relief. Go ahead, skid away from flat, dull, and droopy cushions. Relax, restore, revive. When comfort matters, Stuff It. Mention Monica Lewinsky. Get 10 cents off on the dollar. 877-1616. That's 877-1616.
I'm Larry Daniels from Daniels Insurance, and on the average, our customers save $400 a year. We offer retirement vehicles and annuities in addition to other investment products that help you protect your family. Call 423-332-4774.
Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown off of Highway 58. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com. That's crosscreekchattanooga.com or call
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Saudi Daisy, Chattanooga.
Clinton and Trump go at each other. More tit for tat over who's unfit for office. I'm Stephen Portnoy. Cyber attacks on election systems.
This investigation is expanding.
This is the CBS World News Roundup, late edition. I'm Bill Whitney. The two major party presidential candidates are fighting over things they said last night at that military forum.
The back and forth continued today, with Hillary Clinton blasting Donald Trump for, as she put it, trash-talking generals and praising Vladimir Putin.
It is scary. It is dangerous.
Clinton said Trump has proven he's not taking the election seriously.
Everything is a game. It's like he's living in his own